This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome into the Triple Option. I'm Paul Catalina alongside Royden Ogletree. And yes, we are sitting far apart from each other. We're doing this. We tried this now, because I didn't like the side profile. Plus, I was craning my neck to see the TV. And, so here we are. Just a quick explanation on why I am decked out in fan gear. Garrett is decked out in fan gear. This is the only weekend this year that Florida State, Oklahoma, Nebraska, and LSU have all won games. And it's the only weekend that it can possibly happen because LSU and Oklahoma play on Saturday, which in most years would be must-watch TV. This year is if it's on during the second family gathering.
Right.
Like you've been Thursday, you then like you have a thing on Friday, and then like Saturday is like, oh yeah, I gotta go to my stepmom's today. Like that's
what's up, Frank? Anyway, Oklahoma, Nebraska's on.
Yeah, exactly. So Emery told me that I'm putting off real big divorced dad energy in this outfit. And look, if you turn the hat around, I have a very drummer in a garage band kind of vibe, like
man that has hung around college campus way too long.
Yeah, it's like, hey kids.
Yeah,
you guys hang out, play PlayStation, whatever. You want to hang out with band practice, like, hey, your Uncle Royden's here, say hey to him.
Sup?
Yeah,
I don't want to be here.
Like, we're just gonna rip out some sick tunes for a minute.
Yeah. Mom, Dad's playing in the band with that weird guy again.
Yeah. So that's the vibe I'm going for with the FSU Hawaiian shirt and then the the backwards hat, which actually like here's the other problem, and Craig deals with this every day, but when you have the hat on, like you can't see my face. So now I'm gonna try. I'm gonna do the whole show backwards hat Paul.
Okay, I'll do it in solidarity.
Yeah, and we'll just see if this vibe. Oh my God, that's terrible. That is terrible.
It's like sideways. Yo,
yeah. I was going like late 90s, white hip hop fan.
You're like Robin Williams in Mrs. Doubtfire when he does like the rap for his kids.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely.
My name is Paul, and I'm here to say,
yeah,
FSU won this weekend in a big way.
Yeah, against the absolute, and I've said it yesterday, the absolute worst team I've ever seen in my life.
I was so disconnected this weekend. Besides the Baylor matchup, maybe the Oklahoma-Alabama game, but like what? Wait, what was the score? What happened?
They won. They covered. They had a 33.5 point spread, and they covered. They hadn't scored 33 points all year. If there was a team that could have actually scored a half point, it was definitely Florida State's offense. Like if you
figured it out,
they would have been like, look, we can give you a half point. We're not going to give you all of it.
Who did they play?
So they played Charleston Southern.
Oh,
oof. Yeah. the Charleston Southern broken leg amputees. Like that's
their other leg is broken.
Yeah. One leg gone, the other one broken. That's basically how they won that game.
Man.
Yeah, it was, and
look, get right game, man. It's all uphill from here.
Yeah. It's yes. They have to play the suddenly attractive to recruits Florida Gators.
Mm-hmm. Crazy, right?
Yeah, so they have flipped, I think, 4 people alone from FSU to Florida. 4 that were top 300 recruits. And you want to know, like, the weirdest way – we're going to talk about Mac Brown in a second because he got fired today.
Yeah.
But the weirdest way to keep your job ever has to be Billy Napier.
We were burying him. He was done. Dead.
Done. And look, credit to him for rallying the team. They've only lost one game with DJ Lagway as the starter, which
who could have seen that coming?
Well, I mean, we talked about it here. Royden, all of us was like, hey, what do you have to lose, man? Like,
right.
Go ahead. And this is nothing against Graham Mertz, but, Graham Mertz, the Cowboys have Cooper Rush right now at quarterback, right? So Cooper Rush will win a game every now and again, but he's not helping you win. And, Cowboy fans, when Cooper had to start a couple years ago when Dak was hurt, and they're like, oh, well, I mean, he's playing better than Dak was. Like, well, he played the worst part of the schedule, A, and B, their defense is really good, and they just weren't getting beat. So that's what Graham Mertz was. It's like he was not going to get you beat, but he also wasn't going to help you win.
Graham Mertz is TJ Yates. The idea that in order to save my job, I'm going to start, no offense to Graham Mertz, I guess a little offense, career NFL backup, Graham Mertz, instead of the 5-star dual threat quarterback that I signed to essentially save my job. We're gonna split snaps with those guys.
Yeah.
That's gonna work.
So all this was happening.
Lo and behold, it didn't. It took another injury to.
All this was happening at the beginning of the year. Then here's the timeline as I see it. Ben Sass, the president of the university, has to retire and leave, which was initially because my wife's having health problems, and apparently her health problems were we can't grift money from the university anymore. They've caught us. I don't know if she's having health problems or not, but that was Ben Sass's problem. Was they were spending exorbitant amounts of money and these lavish kind of get-togethers and different things and travel and all that. He said he had to spend money to make money, fundraising wise.
Good work if you can get it.
And the university was like, no, you got to go. And so then you get to the. So he's out. So you got an interim president. Then Graham Mertz, the same week, gets hurt. So DJ Lagway has to start. So then you have, this is the future. The fans are maybe going to get a little excited about this. But they were splitting snaps until Graham Mertz got hurt, and then it forced it into the situation. So these two things, one of them, Billy Napier knew directly maybe would help him in that DJ Lagway is going to play, and people will see, and maybe that'll help buoy it. Then also, you've got the president leaving, so now you're having an interim president. Well, the interim president is probably not going to want to fire a football coach or fire an AD because then you're saddling the next president with making that.
With that hire.
So, again, there's that. Throw on top of that the House settlement in that you don't really know how much money you're going to have for a coaching staff altogether, and then having to pay a $26 to $40 million buyout all in for everybody on the staff is pretty expensive. So you've got that weighing over you anyway. Then your basketball coach gets accused of aggravated stalking. You haven't suspended him yet, though, so that's super interesting.
When did this happen?
About 3 weeks ago.
About a couple weeks back.
Yeah, a couple weeks back. Todd Golden.
Still lurking on campus.
Yeah,
yikes,
accused of aggravated stalking. Now, accused, we say accused. He's been accused, not found guilty or anything yet. They have not suspended him from the team yet, which I don't understand at all. But so that's there. So now your AD, who most people think highly of, but has not had a good run with football in particular, and already had to, lost a basketball coach and had to hire Todd Golden. All that's already happened under Scott Strickland's watch. Then they actually do start winning games, and some of the teams that looked pretty daunting on the schedule actually wound up sucking. They're not good. Or they're just as good as Florida. And then you get a huge, the AD is like, look, he's coming back. It buoys the spirits of everybody. The recruits that were like, okay, I'm between Florida and Florida State. Well, Florida State's in the toilet. And you're just
hanging around.
They're just hanging around. They're not doing anything great. They beat Ole Miss, and all of a sudden everybody's like, yeah, woohoo.
They're the turd that doesn't go down.
Gator bait. And it's like, what are you doing? This is the confluence of events, the weirdest thing that I've ever saved a guy's job. And I'm not saying that Billy Napier doesn't deserve another chance. If you look at the way that they played the last couple weeks, maybe there's something there. But early on, it looked like a disaster. Royden, my mind is blown at how this turned out.
Well, especially you come into the year, with revenge on your mind if you're Florida State and, shot like a bat out of hell trying to buoy the spirits of the Tallahassee faithful, and you lose overseas. And you lose in front of God and the Catholic Church and everyone over in Ireland.
Yeah.
And that's tough beat, especially to Georgia Tech, who's, fine.
They're 7-4.
Yeah, they're good. They're fine. Yeah. Okay, well, it can't all be that bad. Like, Georgia Tech's got some players. They're on the upswing. They're pretty good. And then it just wasn't. And I don't know, man. And to me, this may sound disparaging, but I promise the analogy works. You mentioned flushing them down. It's like they're the turd that doesn't go down on the first flush. Yeah. They're just kind of like hanging around.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, well, maybe I need to call a plumber, or is this stuck, or is this going to go away? Anyway, yeah. But flipping the recruits from Florida State to Florida, I mean, when's the last time that happened? Like,
I mean, it's been about 5 years.
Yeah.
Be honest. Like, they were both, like, all three programs were, like, in a nosedive at the same time. And then Florida State, like, pulled up out of it, and they're up, and they're like, all right, we're doing it.
Mountain.
And then, and woo, they go, and they're doing great. And then last year on December the 5th, they started in a nosedive again, just a little slower than we all realized. Until now, they're barely above the ground.
Yeah.
Miami has taken their spot, and Florida's the one who's like, hey, whoa, hey. So, yeah, nothing makes sense. And here's the thing. The three programs in Florida, the glory days of the state of Florida, I think the entire state in history were the 90s. All the football teams were good. All the college football teams were good. There weren't, you didn't used to hear, like, they existed, but nobody really knew it unless you read a Carl Hiaasen book that there were, like, weird, like, people that did weird things in Florida. But then, like, Florida Man happened, and everybody's, like, figured out how this is how it is. But, like, nobody knew that. You thought three great football teams, Disney World, Miami, this sounds beaches, great. Yeah. Like, that was the pinnacle. After that happened, after social media happened,
cocaine,
the shimmer on Florida was gone. It was just gone.
Yeah.
And,
I don't know. I still am not completely sold that Billy Napier is going to be the savior of whatever, of Florida, but starting with getting good recruits and look, a great quarterback will save your life. Let me tell you about it. It will take you a long way. It'll build you a new stadium over on MLK over there.
Yes, it will.
So I think finally realizing and biting the bullet and starting DJ Lagway and letting him go and make plays, and then a lot of recruits will come play for. You see it in the NFL. A lot of, like, free agents will go play for somebody they assume is a great quarterback. Like, a lot of recruits will go play for somebody that they think will help them win or boost their profile. And regardless of what we think, Florida, still a big profile,
it's
one of the biggest.
Fantastic.
Anyway, all that to transition into our Big 12 versus SEC parity conversation, I imagine.
Yeah, we'll get that in a second. Of course, the big news of the day in college football is Mac Brown's been fired. North Carolina.
Something we said wasn't going to happen because he was just going to retire.
Yeah, well, then, like, he said he wasn't going to retire. And then the university's like, we like the first idea better. And they let him go. And look, he's in his 70s. I think it's clear that he doesn't have all the pitches in his arsenal anymore.
No.
And things are changing. How settlement be damned for North Carolina. They really kind of have to point things in the right direction. Now, I've seen some hot boards already across the college football media landscape. Dan Mullen, John Sumrall. Like, I'll give you mine of who should get a good look. I think John Sumrall at Tulane should get a good look. I think Jamie Chadwell.
It's only his first year at Tulane.
Yeah.
Do you think he'll bounce?
Yeah, I don't think that's going to bother him.
Okay.
I think that Jamie Chadwell, even though this is, Liberty's lost 2 games, I think Jamie Chadwell deserves a look. He's done all of his winning in the Carolinas and Virginia. Okay, and allegedly the thing that's holding him back is he's never been at the FBS level. Well, it's because you people have never hired him, and when he was at the other levels, all he did was kick everybody's ass. So, are you waiting for him to get to Kalen DeBoer went to Fresno State, so it's not like Fresno State was a power job, and he's never been at that, Power 4 job. Well, he's not going to get one until somebody gives it to him. So, to me, I think you'd benefit by having a guy like Jamie Chadwell, who also, I don't think, good thing about Mac Brown at North Carolina is, and I think he understood this, is that while they really like football, but they love basketball. Mm-hmm. Jamie Chadwell is a guy who will understand that and recruit well in it. Mac understood that. I don't know how many coaches really can jump into that world, football coaches, and be like, okay, well, I know that I'm second fiddle here. Lance Leipold does he's all going to be on the show later. He does a great job at Kansas of building the groundswell without having to do what John Calipari did and crap all over his football coach, you know, in reverse. So, yeah, I think John Summerall deserves a look. I am intrigued by Dan Mullen as a candidate there.
His name was being thrown out for any job that was people were vying that maybe, would he get the Baylor job if all of a sudden things turned around? I think you can go worse. People forget how good he actually was at Florida. I think Florida was so obsessed with moving on to being Florida under Urban Meyer that, they kind of forgot that winning 10 games is really cool and good. Yeah. And most programs don't, in fact.
Well, and I think Dan Mullen did get a little exhausted by the recruiting.
Right, how big the recruiting is in the SEC and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he was a really good coach. He was a really good coach at Mississippi State, and, they've had varying degrees of success since he left there as well, too. And, and you've seen how good or bad that Florida has been since he left as well. There is there's a low ceiling, high floor. He's that kind of coach with Dan Mullen. You'll always win 7 games. Now, the last season in Florida, notwithstanding, I think he only won 5 then. I might be wrong. But he's he'll get you 7 wins. And then occasionally you'll reel off 10, 11 wins. And that's kind of what I think North Carolina is sort of expecting from their football program. Now, they'd love to be up there with NC State. Isn't there this year, but they've had really good success at NC State. Yeah. They'd love to be up there with the Clemsons and so on. But, that would be a good hire to me. I was thinking just because of that area and so on, Appalachian State, but who am I forgetting? Oh, Sean Clark.
Yeah.
But they haven't had a really great year this year, so I don't know. That could be one.
Yeah. Look, here's one I'll tell you. Ryan Silverfield at Memphis deserves a look at a big-time job. And who am I forgetting?
Larry Fedora.
Larry Fedora was
Bring him back.
Bring him back. Barry Odom at UNLV. Mm-hmm. Andy Kotelnicki, might want to give him a look. He's going to be a head coach soon. So, I don't know,
you think if things fall off the wagon here really badly for Kingsbury at Washington, if that defense continues to crap out, if he'll come back to college?
I don't know what his
deal is.
His deal is. Yeah, I don't know. Well, we'll see.
People may scoff at that, but I don't know. I think people will jump at the opportunity to make him a head coach again.
I see people saying Matt Campbell, it would be one to watch. Garrett Riley at Clemson, probably not. I like Jason Candle at Toledo. I think that he deserves the shot. He's been really good there. So there's a lot of people that you could throw out there. I'm looking at top 5. Like John Sumrall is on everybody's list, and if it were me and I had to, if we could do a top 5, and maybe if there's not one by Monday, when I'll do another top 5 or Tuesday, I'll do top 5, and the people I would call honestly for this job are Jamie Chadwell, John Sumrall, Dan Mullen, Jason Candle, and Barry Odom. Like, those are the people I would call for sure. But
I'm so shocked that they just straight up were like, nah, you're done before the end of the season.
I think look,
what are they salvaging, though?
Yeah, they're not salvaging anything. And now
let the guy retire.
Yeah, they got it.
He's old. Let him go home.
Yeah. They could, but here's the thing. He could have, knowing this was maybe going to happen, or maybe he was trying to force their hand when it came to the contract. Like, that's probably why he did it. Like, no, you're going to have to pay me the buyout.
Right.
I'm not going to retire. So, good move for, generations of Browns.
Again, the best job in the world is a fired head football coach. It's incredible work.
Yeah.
But none of these guys want to stay fired. That's the whole problem.
No, Ed Orgeron's the one who's figured it out.
Yeah,
exactly. Ed Orgeron's the one who's figured it out. If it were me, if you gave me any job and gave me $40 million to go away, I would not do anything in that field.
It's so crazy because then, like, don't you void your buyout? Like, I know the NFL, I think, still has to pay out on your buyout if you go to another team. But I think in colleges, if you get another job, that either void your buyout or they have to pay that buyout back somehow or another to that school. I'm not quite sure.
Like, it's all like prorated, something like that. So,
but like you're still not seeing that extra money that you would have gotten had you not taken the job.
Yeah.
And granted, you get the other job, so you get that money, so on. But it's like, if you get fired from a big time school, like say today, if throw out a name, Ryan Day got fired.
Yeah.
But then Ryan Day somehow pops up at, North Carolina A&T, whatever. That's too big of a drop. I get it. Just saying, like, they can't pay him what his salary was. But all of a sudden, he's making that salary instead of making the $10 million that he was making from Ohio State, right?
What they do is, like, they'll sign him to a contract that's below a threshold.
Yeah.
And then he just has to give back the difference.
Right.
So, or they basically give back the difference. So, if Ryan Day gets fired at Ohio State and goes to North Carolina will hire him for $2 million, and then they're $8 million. Then it's like only $6 million have to do with it. It's
way too complicated. But my whole thing, you would not hear from me for 5 more years.
No.
I'll pop back up. I'll be a little older and a little grayer, and then hopefully somebody would take me on because of previous success. But I would be out of the spotlight.
I'm just telling you, out of the spotlight, I would just be done.
Yeah, just done.
Like, there's no way you could get me. My dad.
I got to go back to going to kids' houses and recruiting and pitching our. Ugh, no thanks.
I know that you have to, you have to keep going, to do that. But my dad, and it was tough. He forever. We had to wrestle with him of you need to just chill out. Like, you're retired, you had good money, just chill. And then one day he's like, I went to the doctor. I got some bad news about my eyes. And I was like, what? And he goes, I got rectal blindness. I said, what's that? He goes, I can never see my ass going back to work. And I was like, there you go, buddy.
Hey.
Finally got it.
Rectal blindness.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, Dad, what is rectal blindness?
I don't even want to continue down this path.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let that one sail on by. There it goes.
Much of my childhood was spent the same way.
Right.
Just gonna let that one go. When we come back, the Big 12 versus the SEC. Why, in your opinion, is SEC parity good and Big 12 parity bad?
Money.
Well, expound more on that, but we'll talk about that next. This is the Triple Option.
by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Kim says, no disrespect, but not a hat backward guy. No, here's the thing. I don't know if I think I can pull it off. What's the vote in the room?
I mean, you can make it work.
I'm making it work. It's fine. I just want you to be able to see my face, and if I take my hat off, I'll have hat hair now. So once you make the hat decision, it has to stay. So there we go. I don't want the shadow in my face.
You're making it work like Garth Brooks made his rock album work.
Well, yeah, Chris Gaines.
Chris Gaines.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's not really a great compliment. So, or a compliment at all.
In fact, I don't think
that may actually be a bit of an insult, to be quite honest with you.
For those of you who haven't ever seen that, I know we got some children of the '90s and stuff in our chat, but if you've never seen that album cover, oh my God.
You know, it was great. It happened when I was in high school when it came out. And like a friend of mine, super Garth Brooks fan, was like the first one at the Sam Goodies to get it that day. I don't know if you remember those times.
No.
But yeah, where you'd have to like physically walk into a record store and buy a CD.
Oh, that sounds awful.
Yeah, I mean, socializing with other humans is
Gross.
yeah. So he went and got it, and then he listened to it on the way to school the next day. Finished listening to it, and we're like, so how is he? He's like, it's the worst thing I've ever heard in my life. It's not Garth Brooks. Yeah, well, it's Chris Gaines. He's like, no, it is no. Here's the thing. I went to see Garth Brooks in concert. It's one of the best concerts I've ever seen in my life. At no point, there's a point during the show, which is really amazing, where he just, people start yelling up songs, deep album cuts too, that he hasn't played, and he'll play them. No one. I was at AT&T Stadium. No one shouted out a Chris Gaines song.
That would have been hilarious.
Not even one, because when you go to concerts, you're going to come across the super, super, super fan.
Yeah.
And not even that guy. I was on a plane one time from Albuquerque to Toledo.
Wow.
Yeah. And Robin Zander from Cheap Trick was on the flight.
Okay.
And there was a guy that was waiting with me on the same flight from Albuquerque to Toledo that told me all these things about Robin Zander. And I was like, I like Cheap Trick, but I don't need to know all this stuff. That guy, for the Garth Brooks equivalent of that,
right,
would not have even shouted out Chris Gaines.
I just want to just go to the concert and just hold up a big sign that says "Play Lost in You."
Did you just look that up?
Yes. I didn't know a Chris Gaines song. Are you high? I've never known that.
Look, with this look, you could say this guy's high.
Yeah.
Honestly. Actually. Look at me right now. Backwards hat, Hawaiian shirt, jeans. There's a good chance that I've eaten a weed brownie.
Yeah.
With this look.
Well, you look like a guy that still calls it grass.
Yeah. Ass, cash, or grass. Yeah. Nobody rides for free. Yeah, that kind of a thing.
You guys smoking a doobie?
Mm-hmm. Oh, this is Tony. He's my reefer salesman.
Okay, thanks, Grandpa. I'm going to go inside.
Yeah, good luck with your glaucoma. So, Royden, we talked about this on the show yesterday, and we talked about it on 365 Sports, but I'm curious in your opinion. Big 12 parity is a great, we've been living in it for the last few years. It's made the conference very enjoyable. The SEC, I don't think they're dealing with it well.
Their fans aren't.
Yeah, they're not dealing with it well, and they're trying to say, well, our parity is different than your parity. Yeah, the SEC is a better league. We know the SEC is a better league, but I think we're realizing that that is not like you're not going up. To me, you're not going up from the house ribeye 10-ounce cut to the bone-in $100. Like you're not going from a $50 steak to a $200 steak.
Right.
You're going from a $50 steak to like an $80 steak. It's still a really good steak, but it's not like special occasion. We just got the Johnson & Johnson account kind of steak. It's
Right.
not that. And that's, I think, what they're fighting against when it comes to their parity is like, no. We're still the steak of all the steaks. You're like, yeah, you're still a really good steak, but, you're not that much better than all the rest of them. And I don't think they're dealing with it well.
I think they've been told for a long time, at least their fans have been told, and their media machine has done a really good job of getting it out there that they're special little boys. And they're special little boys that need special little treatment. And they've never done anything wrong. And in fact, it's everyone else that is wrong, and you're a special little boy. And I think that they have been told that for a long time. So when they turned, 30 and they're a drunk and failing in their job, and they come to the realization that there may no longer be a special little boy, that that realization in reality is tough. And hey, man, life comes for us all, doesn't it? I just think, look, I'm going on and on. I think there is a little bit of like a little woe is me going on from them. Oh, man, we might not get 5 teams in this 12-team playoff. We were told we would get 5 teams. What happened to the thing that you promised me? It's like promising a kid that you were going to go to Six Flags. And instead, we're going to the fair that's in a parking lot right down the street at like Waco Convention, the Waco Civic Center or whatever. And it's still going to be a good time. You're still going to have fun with your friends, but you might not get to go on the Superman ride. I think the idea that one parody is better than the other parody is laughable because you're all beating each other up. You know what I mean? They're just going to get the benefit of the doubt because, like we've said a million times, they are the SEC. Yes, they are the better conference, I think, top to bottom, than the Big 12 or the Big 10, so on and so forth. They have the most talent. That is just how it works. Anecdotally, they have the most players and talented players on their rosters. That just is the way that it works. Now, but saying that because you get to beat up on the bottom of the SEC, which is also bad, that, but we also played another SEC team, but they're like 2-8. Like, who cares? I'm going on and on. They do have like technically a better parity, I think, than the Big 12 because the Big 12 has 9, I think, bowl eligible teams currently, if I'm looking at it. And I think probably the SEC has 11. I'd have to actually look at the standings here, and I don't want to like do fast math on the show, but only 3 SEC teams right now are not bowl eligible. And if I go and
that's
I look
great.
at,
Good for
and I
them.
go and I look at the Big 12.
No, there's more than 3.
Yeah, look, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 Big 12 teams aren't bowl eligible.
Yeah.
So look, that's technically better parity if you want to
Yeah.
get down to it. But like not handling it and crying, it's not crying poor, but like crying about it online and saying, well, we deserve this much because we're still beating up on each other. It's like, do losses not count the same anymore? I guess they never did. If we go back and we look at previous iterations of this playoff, but we got to get back to a play, make losses great again. You know what I'm saying? And
like you got to make them
mean
I think
something.
the thing they have to mean, like, and a lot of this is like maybe Alabama driven, where they
It
can
is.
sneak their
It
way
is
in.
exactly
and I
that.
don't know. Like, the more I think about it, I don't think they're going to get in. I think they're done. I think they're cooked. But there is a scenario, though, especially when it comes to the Big 12, where the Big 12 just completely eats its own tail and
It's
puts it in a
destroyed
position-
itself on accident.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
Yeah.
I think that the byproduct of it being really fun is that, oh no, we kind of shot
Yeah.
ourselves in the foot.
Yeah.
And it makes for a good, I think it's one of the best football products in the country. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people would tend to agree if they looked at it objectively. But if you want to look at this thing of the whole thing is about making the playoff and conference supremacy and finding our own place in this brave new world, then you kind of did yourself a disservice because like now these teams are just cannibalizing each other. Mm-hmm. And it's happening a little bit in the SEC now, and they just weren't prepared for it. Mm-hmm. And I think the Big 12 has kind of pivoted and been like, isn't this great? You know, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
That we're all killing each other over in this conference, and we don't know who's actually going to be in the conference finals, and there's 250 scenarios that could possibly shake out here. Isn't this great?
Yeah.
Guys?
Yeah.
Anyway, I think Big 12 has done a pretty good job, I think, of like buoying themselves and keeping themselves afloat regardless of the snake eating its own tail a little bit, whereas the SEC is, again, crying poor that they're not going to get, 4 or 5 teams in this thing because what should have happened if you are the deepest conference in the league, teams beating each other. That means you're the deepest conference in the league. To me,
yeah.
If you're all beating, like, wouldn't that show the depth of what your conference is, technically? Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
No, I totally agree with you, Royden. So it's weird. Do you have what is your take on who will be the Big 12 champ with now this week and next week with the championship game? If everything goes chalk,
yeah,
Arizona State, Iowa State.
Yeah, I think that's how it shakes out. Like if everybody just like are supposed to win, the favorites who are supposed to win. I think that's how it shakes out. I mean, Kenny Dillingham is a madman. He has those guys playing with their hair on fire. I don't think anybody can stop Cam Scatterbo, it looks like. But Iowa State's defense is really good. Rocco Beck is playing fine. It would be the first time that, well, if they win this week, it would be the first time ever that Iowa State has ever won 10 games in their history. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So then they would have a chance to continue the best season that they've ever had. There's some fairy dust around Arizona State.
Arizona State's playing the best right now of everybody in the Big 12. Well, everybody in the Big 12 who's eligible for the championship game. The team that's playing the best in the Big 12 now is Kansas.
Yeah.
And the team that's playing the second best in the Big 12 right now is Baylor. And they're playing this week. Now,
they pooped the bed early in the season.
Baylor still has a shot, like
it's
a
like
very
a nightmare scenario
shot. Like
for the rest of the.
It's what Brett Yormark calls the apocalypse scenario. Yeah. Like that's the one.
I mean, genuinely, it's like BYU has to win, and then like 3 or 4 other teams have to lose.
Yes,
favorites have to lose.
Yeah,
and then Baylor could somehow sneak into that.
Yeah, Colorado would have to lose to Oklahoma State. Which I cannot fathom happening, but, stranger things have happened. That means that Arizona State would have to lose. And here's that thing. One of those losses is to Utah. It doesn't count.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Baylor lost to one of the worst teams in the Big 12.
Doesn't matter.
They weren't, but it doesn't count as a Big 12 because it's a non-con game.
Yeah. I did blue sky out that if Baylor somehow sneaks into the Big 12 championship game, I'll get a radioactive bear tattoo. Now this is on here, so I actually probably have to follow that up. I don't know why I just said that.
Well, do you have any tattoos?
No.
Have you ever wanted a tattoo?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Garrett has tattoos. Emery, you have a tattoo? No. Emery, do you want a tattoo?
I almost got one.
Okay. You two, like Garrett's a different animal.
I want more.
Yeah. One day I'm not gonna see him for like 10 years, and then I'm gonna come back and he's gonna look like Post Malone.
Yeah.
No, neck down, I'm good. No, neck up.
Yeah, get it on your face. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
Far be it from me to criticize.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, like, listen, you said, like, yeah, I'll get a face tattoo, and
yeah, just
the first local sports guy with a teardrop tattoo.
What did he do? Don't worry about it.
No. Don't worry. Listen, we'll just say that weather guy wasn't always the weather guy.
Yeah.
and
Coach looked at him sideways one time.
there's a couple of reporters that just aren't here anymore.
Yeah.
They went to Denver. Yeah. But no, I've never wanted one.
Yeah.
Here's my problem with a tattoo. I grew up in a family that was totally against them. One.
Same, yeah.
But I'm not against them. Like, I'm fine. I just don't think there's anything. My wife has a couple, I don't, there's nothing that I could want on my body forever.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's where I could not commit to anything forever. Mm-hmm. Like, there's just nothing I would be like, yep. And when people get stuff of, like celebrities or certain things, I'm like, you do know that like all flames burn out, right? And then you're going to have to be like, REM was a great band, but is a tattoo necessary? Like, you could have bought a t-shirt.
Who was it? I think it was Travis Fimmel. I was watching an interview with him. He's from Vikings and a bunch of other shows, but like he said that people have tattoos of him as like Ragnar.
Yeah.
And he said very candidly, he's like, why did you do that? What if I turned out to be a murderer?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you just have my face on your body for the rest of your life. That stuff is kind of, a bridge too far. But,
Now, look, if I was
a Baylor radioactive green and gold bear.
No, okay.
I don't know.
All right. Now, look, if I was like Samoan or something, I mean, if I could pull that off, I mean, I would that's what one I really kind of I vibe with, because it's like Italians, we don't have cultural tattoo significance. Italians with tattoos are just guys trying to show off. Yeah. That's it.
Well, with your shirt, you could pull it off right now.
Yeah. I mean, if I was Samoan or Hawaiian or whatever, and I had some sort of non, poserish race that I could go and get a tribal tattoo, then I would do that. That I think is cool, but if I went and got a travel tattoo right now, it would be the douchiest thing.
Yeah, you ever seen a dude that's not Samoan or Hawaii or Pacific Islander
lots
that
of
has
them.
it? Yeah, and you're just like,
I grew up in Florida. Yeah. Yeah. No, I
Oh yeah, where are you from? Tallahassee. What?
Yeah. No, I believe me, I have I opened for Daniel Tosh in 2002, a long, long time ago, and he had a bit that I thought was really great. He's also he's how I am with tattoos. He's that way. And he's like, do you think that Chinese kids go into their tattoo parlors and get English words written on their arm? No.
It means love and faith.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. I think that's the joke. Or it means strength and water.
Yeah.
No, they don't. It's dumb.
The funniest follow-up to that, he's like, I hate tattoos. That being said, I have a couple.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. I hate to put that out there on the internet, because now people are going to hold me accountable, and I really don't like being held accountable for my tweets.
Here's the deal. A lot has to happen, Royden. I wouldn't lose any sleep.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
I've tweeted it out, if Baylor comes back in this football game, I'll get a Sailor Bear tattoo or something like that.
Yeah.
They come back down 20 points, and I'm like, oh no.
That one's not a bad one to have, though.
No, I have some friends with that one.
Yeah. There's no tattoo of Florida State that I could get. Maybe I could get the spear, but even then I kind of look like a dick, right? Yeah. It's just there's nothing. This
Florida,
maybe I could get
Florida
this.
State should have been in the 2023 playoff game. You're like Memento. You're getting that tattooed on your body to wake up every day.
I gotta look, but I gotta be upside down, backwards, so I can read it in the mirror.
Yeah,
how he did. Yeah, absolutely. When we come back, Royden and I commiserate about our NFL teams. Here's the thing: I went on an epic rant about it yesterday, of which I don't think I can get to that energy again. So this will be more of a discussion.
Okay.
But I did go off. Emery, did you clip that for the what? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll have to share that on socials.
It's fine. Everything's fine.
Not safe for work. I went on a bit of a rant. And basically my premise being the Cowboys are not decent enough to be great or terrible.
Oh, I hate that. Purgatory.
It is. I told Ari Temkin, he's a Bears fan. I told him yesterday, at least they have the decency to be terrible. Mm-hmm. It does. It takes class to be that bad.
Right.
It takes class to be that good.
Also takes a certain skill.
Do you know what? Do you know what being mediocre is? Classless. Total classlessness.
I think that's in the Bible.
Yeah. It's the ninth commandment. It's no.
Yeah.
I think something about your neighbor's wife and mediocrity. Like
Right.
those things are like it's comma mediocrity. When we come back, we commiserate. This is 365 Sports.
Fantasy Sports EVO, the next evolution of daily fantasy sports. Tired of traditional fantasy sports where you spend hours upon hours studying individual players? EVO's unique team-based platform makes it easier than ever for all sports fans to play. No need to know individual players. Just choose your contest, select your teams, and enjoy the game. Whether you access our website from a desktop, mobile device, or the app, the experience is the same. EVO is for all sports fans. Join Fantasy Sports EVO and experience the evolution.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Royden, you just told me you saw Gladiator 2.
Yeah, 2 Gladi, 2 Aider.
Yeah. And it was good.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. We talked about it One Take Podcast. Go watch and enjoy.
There we go.
But that review will be up a little bit later today, hopefully.
Okay,
I
good deal.
edit that myself, so who knows?
I'm going to throw this out to you, Royden. I had to go see Best Christmas Pageant Ever.
Yeah.
which
Also
was-
got good reviews.
Which is fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's good. It was
It's
good.
fine.
My wife loved it. Like, that's what's important.
Yeah.
She loves Christmas stuff. Light Christmas stuff. She does not like It's a Wonderful Life because it's too dark. And I'm like, well, that's the point.
That's
That's the point. Like, it's darkest before the dawn. But it's depressing. Like, yes, the movie for an hour is depressing. Like,
people forget.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's really dark. I've seen those like super cuts where they like put ominous music behind it as opposed to it, and it like you put Hitchcock. I think if they take the soundtrack from Rear Window and put it behind, because Jimmy Stewart was also in that. So, but there is, I will tell you, in Best Christmas Pageant Ever, one of the funniest like 5 seconds of film I've ever seen in my life is in that movie.
Really?
I've never laughed as hard. The movie is about this small town Christmas pageant. It takes place in the 80s.
Yeah.
And this is a group of like heathen children that are just terrors on the town that are all of a sudden decide to be in this Christmas pageant. And the church can't really do anything about it.
Yeah, they kind of have to take them in.
Yeah, so like, and it's a very heartwarming, nice little story. But there's like a little girl without her 2 front teeth, and in the midst of like their first, like the first time these kids are there, these 6 kids, she just takes a hardcover Bible and whacks a little kid in the head sitting right in front of her. And I have never like maybe it's just me and how like my sense of humor works.
Yeah.
But I laughed harder than anybody else in the theater on that one. And I was like, you guys didn't you see like a 6-year-old clobber a 6-year-old with a hardcover book? That like that's something I've seen and here's the reason I thought it was funny. I've seen that happen in real life. I'm
Right.
sure you've seen it happen in real
people
life. When we
lose
were
their mind.
kids, just do it. And then there were all these people who were like, you know, but I was
gasp.
like, I mean, she just whacked him. And I was like, oh, this is great.
Nothing worse than laughing in a movie theater harder than anybody else that's laughing.
Yeah.
Because I've been that guy. I don't know. I forgot what it was. It's always some inane joke
You
where
know,
it's just like, but I'll be
People like you and me, though, like we like those kind of things.
Yeah.
So like we're going to pick up on them, and then I think you and I are similar in that I'll get those jokes in a first watch, and then I'll get more in the second watch.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people who don't get them in the first watch, which is fine. Like you're just enjoying the movie at your own speed.
Yeah.
But like I'll get them on the first watch, and then everybody else is like, what are you laughing at? I'm like, oh, when you watch this movie again, you'll get it.
There's a bit in it's you should watch it if you haven't watched it. You might our audience might find it stupid, but it's called Hot Rod. It's the first like big Andy Samberg movie that he made post SNL. Or he might have still been in
I
SNL,
think he was still on
but
SNL,
like
yeah.
Bill Hader's in it
yeah.
and everybody. and they're just sitting there and they're filling up a pool so they can drown Rod in the pool. And there's just a main line thrown out where Bill Hader just goes, "Hey man, pools are great for holding water." And I think about that line every day.
Yeah. All right, let's commiserate about our NFL teams. Everybody knows my thoughts on the Cowboys now. They're not decent enough as human beings to be bad or good. They're just good enough not to be bad enough, and just bad enough not to be good enough when that happens. You are dealing with something that is much more severe, actually, in that you're a Houston Texans fan.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. From the very beginning of this franchise, they have chosen the middle of the road. And when Bob McNair and his team were presented with what should we name this team, they chose Texans. The Houston Oilers was a great team name. Mm-hmm. It captured the city, the cut, all of those things.
Yep.
Now, because Bud Adams was awful, they were never
equally awful.
They were never going to get that back.
Yep.
I would, if I were the commissioner, I would have just gone and been like, "Listen, Bud, you can take him wherever you want. You leave the name.
Leave the name and the history. Yeah.
Leave the name and the history. Go wherever you want." I understand.
Earl Campbell never played in Tennessee.
Yes.
Anyway,
Earl didn't really go up there that much either. But so I think cosmically they chose their path when they were like, Texans. They could have gone to the USFL and said, hey, we'd like to be the Gamblers.
Or the Roughnecks.
With the Roughnecks. We could have done, and the Roughnecks would have been great because it's kind of like the Oilers.
Yeah.
And you could have kind of moved on.
Yep.
But that name didn't pop up until the XFL or whatever.
20 years later, yeah.
You could have done it. They didn't. And now you get these moments where you have, right now, generational quarterback, it appears.
Hopefully.
A not generational offensive line, though.
Nope.
And that you're afraid is going to break him like it did a couple of their quarterbacks, namely David Carr. Mm-hmm. And then after, hey, let's bench David Carr and make sure he doesn't get totally emotionally broken, we're going to throw Rob Johnson out there and make sure his spirit is broken forever, and he'll never look at himself in the mirror and think he's a full man.
Right. Vibes are low, guys. Vibes aren't great. And in fact, they weren't great even after they dismantled the Cowboys, because they have this thing. It's like they've scored, this stat might be wrong, but over the last 5 years, they've scored 17 second half points or something like that. Or they scored 17 second half points versus the Cowboys. Only one was an offensive touchdown. They've scored 3 offensive touchdowns in the second half of games. And you know what that tells me? Coaches aren't making adjustments. And that's pretty pivotal when it comes to the NFL, because they have a lot of smart dudes on the other side, even if the Titans are 2-8, and they can figure out what you're doing. You have what was thought, and I still think he's fine. I think he's going to be okay, especially if you let Johnson call the plays.
Gerard Johnson.
Yes. I think if you just pull the Band-Aid and let him call the plays, it'll be fine. But they're not going to do that. They have this thing. The Texans have this thing where hope, and it's actually the Houston football franchise in general, dating back to the 90s versus the Bills game. Mm-hmm. Hope is almost like Dune. It's the mind killer. And hope for anything in Houston football franchise, let me say that, is a death nail. And the problem is that they've had hope 3 times in their franchise history, in their 23-year, 24-year franchise history. 3 times. Once they, were the best team in the NFL at one point, and then they immediately lost both Monday and Sunday night games to the Packers and the Patriots. They wore Letterman jackets, and then basically got run out in the second round of the playoffs. Mm-hmm. They were up 24-0 versus the eventual champion Kansas City Chiefs. Lost 35-24. you come into this season, you have Stephon Diggs, you have all of these free agents, which, Daniil Hunter's playing great, but like all these free agents, you have an offensive line that's bringing back their starters that's actually healthy, that played pretty well last year. And you have a
legit running back for the first time.
You have a legitimate running back for the first time since Arian Foster.
Yeah.
And you have a up-and-coming head coach that's running the defense like the Navy. And you have a offensive coordinator that was getting head coaching looks. And you have proceeded to have one of those guys tear his ACL, your offensive line make zero adjustments, and let your generational quarterback get killed, and he now has the yips. And he's thrown more interceptions in like 3 games than he had his entire rookie year. And Bryce Young had a better game than he did last week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yet you refuse to acknowledge that changes need to be made when you came into the season as like some betting odds Super Bowl favorite to make the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
That cannot happen.
No.
Cannot happen. You cannot lose. And look, if Kaimi Fairbairn makes a 28-yard field goal and you go into overtime and you beat the Titans, okay, whatever. We're moving on to the Jaguars. They still haven't had their bye week. It's week 14, whatever. It's fine. We've corrected some things. We'll be better. You lose to the Titans, who are bad. Will Levis stinks. I'm sorry. He is a bad quarterback. And now you go into playing a Jacksonville squad who you should beat by 30.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Yeah.
And now Jalen Petre's hurt and all this stuff. It is just, hope is killer for Houston Texans fans. Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to be too Debbie Downer. They still have 7 wins. They're leading the division by like 2 games. But it is asinine to continue to run out crap in the second half of these football games and lose or stay in it with teams. One, you should have beat the Lions handedly. You made him throw 5 interceptions, Jared Goff. Mm-hmm. And 2, you had 8 sacks and a pick 6 against Will Levis, who again is bad. And he still had like a perfect passer rating on you.
Yeah.
Not making second half adjustments on defense, not making second half adjustments on offense, and ruining your once franchise quarterback is all coming down the pipeline to you accidentally losing the division to the Colts, who are now look like a good team. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. It's fine. Everything's good. It's cool.
All right. Thank you, Royden, for being here. Next, we do have a look at the rankings from Rankings Right Now's Peyton Soysher coming up right after this. Today, we've got Lance Leipold. We've got Shahan Jayaraja. Colt McCoy. Never heard of him. No. Colt McCoy, Ricky Thompson, Craig's Off the Radar, John McClain. We're going to do our college football standings as well. So all that's coming up later on in the show. But first, we hear from Peyton Soysher from Rankings Right Now. Thanks for watching, everybody. It's Spirit Day. Smokey in Nebraska gear, Craig in Oklahoma gear. And it was Craig's idea. So there we go. Somebody's happy he's getting 4 days off here in a second.
Yeah.
I think. Anyway, that's coming up. This is the Triple Option on 365 Sports.
Chief Rankings Officer Peyton Soysher here on the Triple Option with Paul Catalina. We had a crazy weekend on Saturday of college football. A ton of upsets, a ton of teams that were in great positions and ended up losing, specifically in the Big 12. Let's take a look at where the projected rankings are for the next release of the College Football Selection Committee on Tuesday night, especially focusing around the Big 12. Let's go ahead and take on a look into rankingsrightnow.com. We have an entire website dedicated to machine learning algorithms trying to predict what the playoff committee is going to be releasing in real time. And after the week 13 of college football games, this is the output of the algorithm of where it believes the selection committee is going to be favoring each team going into the top 25 rankings. Let's take a look at the Big 12. If you take a look at these top 2 rows right here, you have to get all the way up to number 16 until you run into a Big 12 team, and it's Arizona State of all teams. They were unranked 2 weeks ago. They've shot out of a cannon the last 2 weeks up in the rankings, right? They are playing really good football. They are playing important football, more importantly, right? They just had a big win against BYU. According to the rankings algorithm, BYU is only going to drop 3 spots in the rankings. Why is that? Because Arizona State was at home, right? These are both highly competitive teams that were playing against each other, right? We saw this a couple weeks ago when South Carolina played Missouri, right? Missouri didn't drop really that far in the rankings. South Carolina moved up. This is the same situation that we're seeing right now. Arizona State moves up 5 spots, BYU down 3 spots. That's what the algorithm is predicting, right? And there is a cluster of those Big 12 teams. You have Arizona State, BYU, and Iowa State all right next to each other, right? So all of them have a legitimate chance for making a late playoff push. Even more importantly, all these teams are going to need that extra game to get that an additional win above a lot of their other opponents to make that Big 12 push, right? So it's really nice to have an additional win. It's even worse to maybe have an additional loss, right? You have to think about where the a loss puts you for a ranking spot. We've seen this time and time again. We've seen where situations like Georgia losing to Alabama in the SEC championship game, right? It knocked them out of the top 4 playing for a playoff title. Now, I understand that we have 12 teams now, but the playoff committee does take these things into account when it's trying to evaluate who the best teams are, right? If a Georgia team that's in the SEC championship automatically right now loses a game in the SEC championship game, it might knock them out of the rankings completely, right? You have something else that is very, very similar with Arizona State, BYU, and Iowa State that are the top 3 teams fighting for that championship game. If any of them lose that championship game, it might be the end of their season. So do we only see one team maybe making the Big 12 championship? Potentially, right? Where was the other team that was involved in all of this? Colorado. Kansas is just playing spoiler to everyone. They spoiled BYU and they spoiled Colorado, right? Does Colorado have a chance to really make the selection committee playoff? I don't think so. It's a very low chance that they're going to make the Big 12 championship game. And according to the rankings right now algorithm, they're out of the top 25 entirely. So with only one regular season game left to go, that's a very hard sell for Colorado, right? They had everything in front of them. If they took care of Kansas, they were just kind of projected to make their way through all the way into the Big 12 championship game and potentially a good ranked spot for the selection committee. Now they're out, right? Arguably one of the more exciting offenses in college football we won't get to see in a playoff. So that's a bummer, but a huge showdown between Arizona State, BYU, and Iowa State, all fighting for potentially one more spot that's going to be allowed for the Big 12 going into the playoff committee's rankings at the end of the year. So all things that really need to be evaluated, all things that need to be really focused on. The Big 12 has been fun the entire year. Very similar to the SEC. One of the reasons why it's doing so well is because all of the teams are so even. But it's doing very well, and that's going to hurt their playoff chances, and only one team is going to make it in, right? You have the Big 10 and SEC the SEC that has a lot of fights, but there's so many great teams, right? The Big 12 is starting to get that reputation of having a really great squad. So I think that if you have all of those different teams that are trying to evaluate, or not evaluate, but play out who the king of the hill is going to be in the Big 12, these next 2 weekends are going to be enormous, and I only think one team is going to make it into the rankings based off where the projected rankings are going into Tuesday night's rankings release. I am Chief Rankings Officer Peyton Soisher on the Triple Option with Paul Catalina.